Which brings me to a lap of the map and the power mad premiers. I won't bang on too long about this, but there was a lot of bad news around today, including our old mate, Premier Marshmallow in South Australia, a fistful of cases, yet the entire state of South Australia is going to be locked down. Every kid will not be allowed to go to school for the next week.
As of 6 p.m. tonight, we move into a 7-day stay-at-home order in South Australia with very few reasons why people can leave the home.
Well, of course, things were confirmed as going for yet another week, and they always were going to. In Victoria, where Chairman Dan today decided that the best course of action was to, go back on what he said 1 week ago. Remember when he said, "I'm not going to bag Gladys Berejiklian"? The chairman is above such low-rent politics.
I've been texting her a little bit saying, look, if you need anything, we've got learnings, we know things because we went through it, not just as a government, but as a public health community, as a Victorian community. If there's anything we can do, both in practical assistance or in just kind of talking to someone who's been through it, we're absolutely there.
Yeah, well, that was then and this is now, and still the entire state of Victoria is locked down. Still people can't go to work and still kids can't go to school. So, as a way of distracting from his own failures, always endlessly there, and the over-the-top behaviour of Bambi Eyes Sutton, well, it was now time to start blaming New South Wales, wasn't it?
I just remind you all, we had a ring of steel around Melbourne last year, and it didn't just protect country Victoria, it protected the whole country.
Now, this is a tactic which the Queen has used in Queensland, where the Emperor uses in Western Australia, Marshmallow in South Australia, and now Chairman Dan in Victoria. I've got nicknames for them all. But let's actually deal with the facts here about who lets things get out of control versus not, and whose lockdown is bigger than anyone else's. Now, you can view this either as an attack on Daniel Andrews or just a little dose of the truth. You see, here's the deal, right? Let's compare the lockdowns. During the long lockdown of last year, cases peaked at 768 cases in one day in Victoria. And now, the best part of a month into what looks like it could be a long lockdown, with data analysts saying it could go till September, I know. 112 cases a day is the worst that it's got in New South Wales thus far. Well, before we want to start carrying on, Dan, about my lockdown's better than your lockdown, what about this? In your lockdown, the result of your failures led to a committee concluding that 768 deaths were directly linked to the failures of the Victorian government in hotel quarantine. You can link 5 to what's happening in New South Wales right now. And then, of course, let's get to gold standard Gladys, or as the Financial Review decided to put in its magazine a few weeks ago, and she posed for the photo, the woman who saved Australia. Several regional towns are going to go into lockdown for a week in New South Wales. This is the news that's been breaking while everyone else has been talking here on Sky News. Orange, Blaney, some of the shires that will be locking down for 7 days. Now, you know and I know that the decision to ban people in the construction industry, the landscaping industry, you name it, even the cleaning industry, is ridiculous in New South Wales. Sure, maybe in Fairfield, where they still account for half of all of the cases that are in existence in New South Wales. But the idea that people who are in zero duck egg territory still can't send their kids to school and can't go to work is ludicrous. The decision, of course, which was a captain's call to shut down the entire construction industry, from the smallest of home renovations to the biggest buildings that will change Sydney's skylines, well, after an obvious backlash and the endless flow-ons that are real problems for the New South Wales and thus national economy, the Premier is saying this.
There'll definitely be construction activity on the 31st of July, I can give you that assurance. And we're also working with the industry, and this is a really important point, to make sure sites are kept what we call live. And the industry uses the term warm, as in making sure there's enough security and that equipment's taken care of so that they can resume as quickly as possible.
It could happen right now. The industry has not had a single case of COVID on building sites, and certainly big building sites, in the entirety of the pandemic. These people can be simultaneously trusted to build buildings that will last for decades but can't be trusted to keep 1.5 meters away from each other. Grow up.